Hey, what's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of Chasing Elephants. I am one half of your host, Jeff Wallace, and as you know, this is our summertime programming, and so Brent and I, we're kind of splitting time, and so I'm here in San Antonio for our 101. Brent's actually in Orlando. We're going to swap sides here in a minute. He's going to come to San Antonio. I'm going to go back to Orlando, and then we have our 301 experience and then our 201 experience. So we're just kind of pass each other in the airport, high-fiving one another. But the beauty of this is I selfishly get an opportunity to do the podcast by myself, but also interview great friends that we get an opportunity to do life with. And as you know, if you've been a part of the SLU 101 experience, you know we always have what we call a leadership perspective session, and we always bring thought leaders from around the country who have various giftings and experience and how they're leveraging that gifting and leveraging that calling that the Lord has allowed them to have and use, and how how they're using that calling for the glory of God in their profession. And so I gotta tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I am excited about this conversation that we're going to have today, because I have a gentleman that you know, but you don't know you know him, right? And I can't wait for him to tell his story and you to hear all about what he does. He has probably one of the coolest and also probably one of the most dangerous jobs, in my opinion, that I've heard of in a long time. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to welcome, or you're going to hear from a friend of ours, and you can welcome my friend James Sang Lee. So, James, man, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
Thanks for having me.
You know, and you actually are a friend of Brent's, and so I know this is painful for him that I get to have some time with you, and he just has to get it on the back end and stuff. And so, well, James, let's just jump right in our conversation. Sure. And won't you tell our Chasing the Elephant audience? And so, just so you know, our Chasing the Elephants audience is students that are part of our SLU experience, okay. Adult youth pastors and youth leaders and senior pastors that are in the ministry serving, whether they're new to the ministry or they're ministry vets. So we have a very diverse group of listeners that you'll be talking to. And so, but tell us a little bit about like your story and what you're currently doing. So first, before we tell everybody how you got to what you're doing, tell us what you do for a living right now.
Oh, great question. What do I do for a living? Well, it changes every day. Well, I've been very blessed that my martial art career has put me in sort of three areas. The first one is the sport itself. The second one is in the high-end security industry, like executive protection. And the third is in cinema and film. So I've kind of rotate, if you will, depending on the season or the time of year or what's going on.
Yeah, that's great. And so for the cinema and film, what are some of the movies that you've been a part of?
Yeah, been a lot of action films.
Yeah.
Lethal Weapon 4, Blade, the current movie Plane.
Yeah.
TV shows and films like Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
And it's so funny when I think about it, I'm like, and a bunch more.
Yeah. And so, ladies and gentlemen, what you don't know, he's very modest. Like, James is this is the term that we know is true because other men and women in the profession call him the OG of the stunt devil.
Maybe one person calls me OG.
Yes. Now, how you talk about the martial arts, but how did you get into like the film business?
Yeah, you know, in the 90s, I'm going to date myself a bit here. I had this idea when I was competing, seeing some of the people from the pro circuit get picked. From Ninja Turtles to some of the Karate Kid. This is sort of the Van Damme, Jean-Claude Van Damme, and Steven Seagal era.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm a champion. Like, what does it take to be in this? And my buddy from Ninja Turtles was like, James, you live in Madison, Wisconsin. You got to move. And that's how it started.
That's really, really cool. So let's start from the beginning. The martial arts,
Sure.
that martial arts experience and that time. And I know you competed a lot. And
Yep.
and how many times champion? What are you? 4 times.
Four times
4 times
ISK
champion.
world champion.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
Now talk to us about your martial arts career. What was that like?
Sure. I started martial arts all the way back in the 1970s. My family's into kung fu and just culturally from being roots from Hong Kong.
Yeah.
So I had a lot of influence right out of the gate. Enjoying Hong Kong film, studying kung fu,
Yeah.
a lot of influence from like the Jackie Chan movies, and of course,
Yeah.
like most people, Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
So in our family, we have a Wing Chun kung fu master.
Wing Chun Kung Fu Master.
And so
okay.
when you see the movies like Ip Man with Donnie Yen,
Yeah.
Ip Man was Bruce Lee's Wing Chun kung fu teacher.
Huh.
So those movies, Ip Man is Bruce Lee's teacher.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. And then, so are you one only child? How many siblings do you have?
My sister and I.
Okay, now is your sister, is she in martial arts as well?
Not at all.
Okay, so it's just you. All right. So now how did you get into like the professional competition with
Well,
that?
it's interesting as you bring up this question. I hadn't thought about this in a long time. So I was into, like this idea, like, what is a Chinese kid living in the Midwest? Everybody around me had blonde hair, blue eyes, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I should probably learn how to defend myself. And so I got really into kung fu, and it was also a way for me to be close to my culture.
Yeah.
And what's interesting though, as I was learning kung fu, in our church there was a student leader then that was into karate.
Yeah.
And so I started learning the karate in that era as well. So I'm studying kung fu, also learning karate, and then at the same time,
Yeah.
my father went in his early years college with Sankey Pek, and for those of you like Taekwondo, Sankey Pek was one of 5 to bring Taekwondo into the Olympic Games.
Huh.
So I had so much early influence from masters, which very few people have a true master to train with.
Yeah.
And I had multiple ones that I was influenced by.
Okay. Now, all right. So I want to just take a little pause. And this is just for me. This a couple questions just for me. All right. Now, as a kung fu master, as you learn kung fu, did you ever have to? You talked about you wanting to defend yourself.
Yeah.
Did you ever have to use it on somebody in real time, where like somebody was coming for you
Great
or
question.
whatever, trying to come for your sister, or whatever, like so
Right.
you had to just like hold on, I'm the master,
This is a great question.
Yeah.
So I'll be very, very frank on this. So from a professional level, I've had to use it a lot.
Really?
From a personal level, not once.
Really?
Yep.
That's interesting, because if I'm a master of kung fu or something, I don't know the various degrees of it, I'm looking for somebody,
Yeah.
To use it on and stuff. But so okay, all right, so got that. Now, all right, did you ever know or remember this movie, The Last Dragon?
Oh, I
Yes,
love that movie.
yes, Bruce Leroy. Yes.
Bruce Leroy.
So for those of you who don't know, so this is like an urban kung fu film.
Oh, I love this movie.
And the black community, we didn't really have.
Right.
Now we love Bruce Lee.
Yep.
And Jackie Chan and Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Sure.
Definitely.
Sure.
But we never had our own movie.
Yeah.
And so The
love
Last
this.
Dragon, was
Ty Mack.
Yes, and he had the glow. He had that.
Who's the master?
Yeah, sure enough. Yes. And so, all right, so in that film,
Yeah.
how authentic was the kung fu and what style were they using?
Very good. Well, first of all, love that movie.
Yeah.
I remember seeing it at the drive-in movie theater, so that made it even better.
Yeah.
I want to say this real quick on that film, and to your question, there's all kinds of great martial arts in that movie. And what's great about a film like The Last Dragon is you're actually outside of the boundaries of the disciplines. It's not just kung fu, it's not just karate, it's not just taekwondo. They're blending it to make great fight scenes and fight choreography.
Okay.
So if you remember, there's great kung fu in there.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of influence from Ernie Reyes Sr. and Ernie Reyes Jr., who did a lot of cool taekwondo stuff in that film.
Yeah. It was, man. I just remember the glow. And I wanted to always have
glow.
The glow. So classic movie. So all right, sorry. So I
love it.
I just want when you started talking about it, I was like, man, I wonder if he knows about The Let's drag.
Well, I gotta say this, Jeff, because I love this movie.
Yeah.
My favorite line of that whole movie is like, "Well, you guys are learning how to fight, so you don't have to fight. I don't know how to fight." Well, maybe I got the line wrong, but I was thinking the Johnny U character.
Yeah, man. It was so good,
Oh
so
my
good,
gosh.
so good. All right. So,
Sorry.
No, that's good. All right, so back to the competition. Now, you were 4-time champion.
Yeah.
But leading up to that, there was a moment of like disappointment, would you say?
Yeah.
You know, talk to us about that.
Well, I'll say this on a couple levels too. The ISK World Championship for me was kind of always a black eye for me, meaning I had been there multiple times. And in fact, in my career, I was in the world final a total of 7 times.
Okay.
That also means in the world 7 times, that means I lost 3 of them.
Yeah.
And so when we faced Trinidad, and there was a gap between the last time I was in the championship all the way to when we faced Trinidad in 2009, we faced 43 teams to make it to the final to face Trinidad. And when we lost by 1/100th of a point,
Wow.
the guy,
1/100th of a point.
yeah, I mean, you're like a blink of an eye type
Yeah.
of thing. It was one of those where I was honestly knew I was on the tail end of my career.
Yeah.
I was honestly just happy to be in the show one more time.
Yeah.
I knew the guys though, they knew like we were right there.
Yeah.
So anyway.
That's incredible. So you have that. Now, did you lose 3 times straight before you started to win, or was it lose win? How
Yeah,
was okay.
it was almost, let's see, 09, almost 10 years before we were in the final the previous time.
Really?
A long time ago. People spend their whole career to try to make it to this point.
Yeah.
And many people will never make it.
Yeah. And how long is the training process that you train for as you prepare for the finals?
When we faced Trinidad, we practiced 1 year straight to face Trinidad.
Wow.
And that was seven meals a day, practices 3 times a day for 1 year straight.
Wait, but you said 7 meals a day? So
7 meals a day, 3 practices a day to face Trinidad.
Now, how as a leader, this is good. Now, you think about that as a leader, you're putting all of this effort, this energy, this work, this training, this practice, and obviously you know that, I mean, it's win or lose sports. There's no guarantee,
Of course.
that you're going to win, but how did you rationalize that? How did you handle that? You know, that you spend this whole year preparing for this event, this moment. You lose it, especially with just a blink of an eye. How did you handle that?
Yeah, well, I knew as we were going into the 2009 championship that I was on borrowed time as an athlete. Many athletes really, when you start kind of getting combat sports, when you start to get that 27 years old, 30-year-old age range from a professional athletic standpoint, you're really going to be at that highest peak, and it's going to come down from that.
Yeah.
So I was really on borrowed time, so I was like, hey, let's go for it. Let's give it everything we have. We're going to do everything right. Eating, training, scientific, focused. And so when we lost to Trinidad, people say like, no, there's no way you were disappointed. I honestly wasn't. I had that, like, I gave it everything I had. And it just wasn't going to be for me, I felt.
Yeah.
And so I could walk away with no regrets that I gave it everything. Now, in other times, I think I would be disappointed because, but I also was disappointed myself. I didn't give it everything I had.
Yeah. Well, I want to kind of transition to your Hollywood career.
Sure.
But before we do that, I want to talk about, all right, so talk to us, and for our audience who don't know, like your faith journey. Like, when did you become a believer?
Yeah.
You know, and what was that like? What was that moment like? Because I think it's important to know that, to know, like, okay, now you're taking this into Hollywood, if you will. So what about your faith journey? What was that like?
Yeah, a lot of people, they've heard the story where I was at the red carpet premiere, asking the Lord, like, I got everything. I brushed my hair, my arm blows out socket, changed my life. A lot of people think that is what, their conversion moment. But actually it's not. I was a believer in my grade school years. I remember being at vacation Bible school, and I remember like studying the Word of God. My parents knew Jesus. I loved Jesus. I read the Bible.
Yeah.
But I would say that in that VBS timeline, I remember the music director saying, there's your parents' faith, and then there's your faith.
Right.
And I remember saying in that moment, Lord, don't forget about me. And I think it was around fourth grade, give or take.
Oh, wow.
And so I clearly had Christian worldview. I was reading the Bible, went to youth group, go to church. But I think when I went off the deep end in the college years that I took to the movie business, I would say this, is that there's God is your Savior, Jesus is your Savior, but is He Lord of your life? And I would say this, He was not Lord of my life. I was doing my own thing.
Yeah.
I think it was when my hair and I did the arm thing.
Yeah.
I think that's when I was like, no, Lord, you are number one.
Yeah, yeah, wow.
So I think there's a little difference there.
Yeah.
People can theologically check me, but I really do feel like I knew Christ. I was swayed back and forth, but it was when I got hurt, I was like, no, there is no other thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, just for a connection of timeline, when you hurt, were you competing, just competing, or had you gotten into the movie business as well?
A little bit of kind of their mixture in that
okay.
timeline. Yeah, a little bit of both.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Now, how is that being a believer in the business, like the Hollywood business?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously we see it. We see all of the things, you hear all of the things that happen in Hollywood and all that stuff. So, one, was it tough? And then two, how were you able to really maintain your faith and truly be salt and light in the industry that you're in?
I'm going to start with this. Number one, right out of the gate, it's tough. It is really tough. That is a tough business that I think it's a combination of the money, a combination of the power. We don't always think of film as an influencer in the sense of like even propaganda, if you will.
Yeah, yeah.
But it is one of the most powerful vehicles that everyone sees at a mass scale.
Yeah.
And so it's an engine that is a lot against believers.
Yeah.
Okay? So there's that. It's a tough business. Lots of drugs, lots of drinking, a lot of dark places in the movie business. So it is tough. And a lot of people in the very powerful seats, they are clearly not believers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Clearly not.
Yeah. And so for you, you're walking in this space as a believer,
Yeah.
and I can imagine, or I'm guessing, I should say not imagine and guessing, but like, so if this is the scene, most people succumb because they feel like they have to compromise to fit in.
Correct.
And all this stuff. How did you handle that personally?
Yeah. I would say the brushing of my hair, I think it just sort of whittles away at you, and you're like, you kind of bend. It's like, it's kind of like that whole give Satan an inch, he becomes the ruler, right? And it's like one of those, I think it's like, oh, I think it's okay today.
Yeah.
I guess this is comfortable. Well, everybody's doing it, and before you know, the culture is guiding you, not the truth. And when you're not strong in the Word, you're not around other believers, you don't have that accountability. I think it was rough, and I think it was very rough for me in that time. After the shoulder experience, I knew more why I was in the movie business, right? It's like, oh, God cares about these people. God wants them to know Christ. God wants to save them from darkness, from despair, from anxiety. Because what's happening is we're all wanting to be loved.
Yeah.
We all want to know purpose.
Yeah.
And I think in that world, when there are all, if you will, yes men around you, you're king of the world. There is no other kings.
Yeah, yeah. And so with that, did you lose? Well, so two-part question. One, did you lose roles or anything like that? Did you? So you did. You lose,
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely.
And was it evident? How did you know that was you're losing this particular role because of your faith? How was it obvious, or you just kind of knew?
I kind of a little bit of both, and it depends on the situation. I would say, film is like a club, and so when you're not hanging around, you're out of sight, out of mind, and so you're kind of already pushed to the side just because they're like, nah, we can't hang around you because this is your belief. Because I think they felt sometimes judgment, even though we're not saying anything or doing anything. But it's like, I think it's evident, and I think it's just that the light and the darkness, they don't.
They don't mix.
Yep.
So in essence, that's the definition of being typecast, right?
Yep.
So you're typecast now because you're a believer.
Absolutely.
Okay, so but now you still had opportunities, and we're going to talk about those in a second. So as a believer, did you feel a responsibility, burden, or desire to kind of like share your faith with other actors, or is it just, hey, I'm a believer and I'm just gonna do my thing?
Yeah, I think, boy, that's a great question. I think when I've done that, there has been sometimes an immediate, I don't want to have anything to do with you. And so I think it's an industry that you have a certain amount of time together as a if you will, a family unit.
Yeah.
And you kind of have your favorite uncle and your favorite, and there's
Yeah.
people you don't want to be around your family. So I think it's not very different from that.
Yeah.
And so I think people just naturally, they just want to spend time with you.
Yeah, cool. Well, what would you say for those who have some of our listeners, especially students, that may, they're in drama class and
Sure.
film class or acting class, and they have aspirations to, be a Christian actor or
Yes,
actress, or
yes.
try to get into film, but definitely want to not compromise their faith in there and
Absolutely.
the integrity of their faith and their witness. What advice would you give to some of those students who are
I love
desiring
this
to
question.
get into acting?
Number one is this, is especially if you will, the prime time of my career, in particular the 90s, it was only in LA that it could be done. Something is a significant shift has happened.
Yeah.
Part of it because of Marvel, that it's now on the East Coast.
Yeah, yeah.
Before the Marvel and all the Atlanta films and things like this, it was really at Los Angeles,
Yeah.
little North Carolina, Louisiana, Florida, tiny bit. But since Marvel and these other projects, East Coast film has really risen. So
Wow.
there's not that
Wow.
requirement, if
To
you
go
will,
out to
to
California.
be in California. Now, I'm not saying those issues don't exist in
Sure.
Atlanta, but it has changed the navigation of how to do projects. Secondly is this, and I'd encourage believers to read Old Testament about Bezalel, God's chief artisan. And if they look this up, okay, they'll realize God wants to take a hold of the movie business because it is a powerful tool that can shine, shine, shine. Now, you look at a TV show like Chosen, because at the end of the day, it costs a lot of money to make TV and film.
Right.
Okay? But when it comes down to it, if the story is good, it's not even going to matter. If story is good, it's not going to matter. And I'm going to give you a case in point with action. Transformers 2, and boy, those guys will hate me for saying this, but I'm going to say it. Transformers 2, big blockbuster action.
Yeah.
And it is a massive franchise.
Uh-huh.
Transformers 2, when you watch it, there's so much action though,
Yeah.
it's just a blur. Because the story's not strong. And there's no time to engage of why are we concerned or not concerned. And so when we see a movie like Transformers 2, it's just a blur of action. It can't be that way. Good action movies, we remember them because we felt the need for the hero, or we
Yeah.
felt why someone died. Because storytelling is all borrowed from the
Yeah.
Lord. Okay?
Yeah, that's
so
good.
so back to believers. Believers should be the creators of the best storytelling ever. They should be the best filmmakers ever.
That's
we don't
good.
really actually need to rely on LA,
Yeah.
especially now that we have social media, YouTube, cameras. I had my Insta360 earlier. The tools that we have now, I see students editing faster than people do in the studios now.
Wow.
Right on their Macs.
Yeah.
I see the cameras like Insta360 X4s. They can film in 8K.
Yeah.
We were never able to do this on
Right,
set.
right, right,
Plus,
right.
it took a whole team to move
Right,
cameras
yeah,
around.
that's something,
Now I
yeah,
see
yeah,
people
yeah.
like, hey, can I put my tripod here?
Right, yeah.
That's a camera? Like,
Yeah.
And it takes better stuff. So I would say to believers, make your own stuff. Build those relationships. Make your own product.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think the decision that you have to make in that. Well, one, I love. There's so much you said. I love that. I love the reality and the reminder of the beauty of storytelling.
Yeah.
And I mean, the greatest story ever told is the gospel.
The gospel.
And so being able to do that, I think that's so good. But, I think some of the challenge, if you will, is, a lot of young leaders or aspiring actors and actresses, they want the big contract, the big money. It's
Sure.
the enticement of
Yep.
the shine and the lifestyle.
Well, and I want to say this too, is that's what enticed me. I was so like in that timeline, like I want to be in the biggest names. I want to be around that. I want to be famous. I want to make money. Blah 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 blah. And it got all distorted, and God wasn't first. And you just begin to bend.
Yeah.
And I tell you, God's going to honor when we make him first.
Yeah.
And then he's given us this innate desire to be
Yeah.
storytellers, make movies, and
Yeah.
all this creative stuff. He's going to honor that.
Yeah, I love that. So that basically we got to live out Matthew 6:33.
Exactly.
You know, seeking first the kingdom of heaven. And,
Absolutely.
And so, so okay, with that, so let's go to your films. Let's go to the films, and you've done a lot of great films. And so, what was I'm curious. What was your favorite film that you did, and why?
You know, I'm not saying people shouldn't watch this movie because it's rated hard. There's a lot of bad stuff in it. But
Yeah.
from a production standpoint,
Yeah.
I think my favorite film to work on all time is Blade.
Okay.
I think it's my favorite because I got to work directly with Wesley Snipes in the fight scene.
Yeah.
I got
Is he a
to,
jerk in this? This is just
yeah, you know what? I really enjoyed him.
Really?
I really
Okay.
enjoyed working with him.
Like, you hear a lot of stuff.
Absolutely.
You hear a lot of stuff.
Mel Gibson gets a bad rep. I loved working with Mel Gibson.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll tell
Sorry,
a
I
story
didn't
about
mean
it.
to-
No. I really enjoyed working with Wesley, and I think we first connected, though, as athletes.
Okay.
And so we appreciated the discipline that went into our martial art
Yeah.
training. What makes me like the movie Blade so much
Okay.
is they brought together, when I say they, Jeff Ward, who was Wesley Snipes' stunt double for years, he brought together some amazing martial artists.
Okay.
And so we got a chance to create, I'm going to use that word,
Yeah.
design
Yeah.
fight scenes with all these different martial artists from different styles. It was like being a painter with
Yeah.
unlimited resources to make
so
whatever
good.
we wanted to do.
Yeah.
I think also, too, we knew when we were making Blade that this was going to be something. It was sort of that, like, the studio was taking this comic book idea
Yeah.
very seriously.
Yeah.
And now it had a star, and
Yeah.
all these amazing martial artists,
Yeah.
and it had big bucks behind
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Now, because they didn't do, was it just one?
Three.
It was three. That was three.
Yeah.
And then after that, it was like, okay, we've done enough. The story has kind of ran its course.
Yep.
And so now with that, did you do all three of them?
No, just the
Okay.
first
Oh,
one.
just the first
Yeah,
one.
just
Okay.
the first one.
All right. Cool. So, all right. So Blade. All right. So favorite. All right. Now, as a stunt devil,
Yeah.
is that the right term? Stunt devil or
A stunt double?
I said devil.
Stunt
sorry.
man, stunt double.
man. Stunt devil.
Definitely not a devil.
I'm just you got me with the all of the craziness in California stunt double. Sorry. I knew that. And so, as a stunt double, what was your scariest moment? Like you did a lot of crazy things. A lot of devilish things. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. We'll edit that out. So, all right, we'll start over.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm sorry. What was your scariest moment as a stunt double? All right.
Yeah, I got two that come to mind right out of the gate. The first one is Sudden Terror, where we took the bus off the bridge. But I think I'm going to tell the story on Lethal Weapon because I think it's a really cool story
Yeah.
too. So Lethal Weapon, the franchise is the Mel Gibson, Danny
Yeah.
Glover, the two cops, right?
Yeah.
And so I was in Lethal Weapon 4, and the scene that I did lots of scenes, but the one that's really memorable for me was a ship freighter in the Pacific Ocean. And my job was to go with another stunt down a dinghy boat, lowered into the San Pedro Bay. This is in the middle of the night.
Yeah.
It's pitch black out there. This is below 50-degree water.
Yeah.
And so the freighter's flowing in the night, the dinghy boat goes down, and then the scene, Mel Gibson's boat comes and discovers this illegal boat. Gunfighting plays. And my job in the dinghy down, and then I'm going to jump into the ocean in the middle of the night.
Wow.
So you have to understand an action scene like this is very intense, okay?
Yep.
Because it's not like, hey, just park that in front of a 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
It's like, no, the ship is going to have to reset every take and drive a mile to come back to one.
Yeah.
The boat, the dinghy boat, is attached by wires. Mel Gibson's boat's the third boat, but it's probably about 100 people to film a scene like this in the middle of the ocean. Well, I'll give you context. One of the scenes missed the lighting boat. And my understanding, if I remember correctly, there was a $175,000 miss because they missed the lighting scene. Right?
Wow.
So it takes that much to reset all of that to film a scene. Anyways,
$175,000.
getting back to your question
Yeah.
on danger, if I jump too far, I'll get smacked by Mel Gibson's boat. If I don't jump far enough, I'll be dragged by wires for a mile under by the San Pedro Bay.
Wow.
Okay? Don't forget, I'm in the water. There are these barrels from the gunfight falling on top of the area
Yeah.
that we're in the middle of the ocean.
Right.
I could also just float away in the ocean, and how do people find you? Right? This is the ocean in the middle of the
Yeah.
night. It's dark. Okay? So many things can go wrong. But I got to tell this because,
Yeah.
yes, it was dangerous. So they had this, what's called a safety meeting, especially for such an intense scene.
Uh-huh.
And I'm in this little boat. I just remember like sitting in this boat, one of my favorite memories in the movies. Mel Gibson, Danny Glover, Joe Pesci, the stunt coordinator, Mick Rogers.
Yeah.
And over here is the film director, very famous, Dick Donner. So if
Okay.
you've ever seen The Goonies, Dick Donner did The Goonies.
That's a throwback.
Superman.
That's a throwback.
That's Dick Donner.
Okay.
All these famous action films was
Yeah.
Dick Donner.
Okay.
So I'm sitting here with Dick Donner. Dick Donner's like, James, you know, if you don't jump far enough, Mel Gibson's boat, bang. Or I mean, dragged under the water. If you jump too far, bang, Mel Gibson's boat. Do you have glow sticks in your wetsuit? Because if you get out there, how's the Navy SEALs going to find you and pick you up? Do you have your wetsuit on, below 50-degree water? So he's going through this checklist with me. And Dick Donner's a great guy. And all of a sudden he goes, oh, by the way, James, can you swim?
Oh, what?
And he was just joking with me.
Oh,
And
okay,
when
okay,
but
yeah.
he was that kind of guy who was great to work with.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah.
of course,
You
it
should
be question number
yeah,
one,
yeah,
right?
Yeah, that should
Can
be
you
question
swim?
number one after all this, but out the glow
Yeah.
stick and everything like that. That is crazy. So
Oh, yeah.
obviously you're still here, so you jump perfectly there and
Yeah.
stuff. Now in that moment, how was your nerves? Because I think if I hear that, I know, hey, I jumped too far, boom. You know, I'm
Yeah.
going to get popped by the boat.
Yeah.
You know, if I don't jump far enough, I'm going to be dragged, you
Absolutely.
know, for, a mile or so. So how is your nerves in that moment, and how do you psychologically calm yourself so that you can get out of your head
Yeah.
to perform this stunt accurately?
I think there's a couple things that go into a scene that's this intense. Number one is you are relying on a lot of people to do the right thing. And I don't think people understand when you make an action scene that intense, it's like the cameraman can affect it, the lighting person can affect it, the person who's working with explosives can affect it.
Yeah.
Is this boat driver doing the right path?
Yeah, yeah.
So much is going on there. So I think there's an aspect of choreography that you're trusting a lot of people. I think for yourself is to know your role too. Right? It's like, what happens if this happens? Okay, I need to jump here. If this happens, I need to do this. So I think there's an aspect of I need to know my part, but I also need to know, what if these things happen? What do I do?
Yeah.
And so I think there's some of those aspects that are really important of that. And I think the last piece is repetition, repetition, repetition. So much can go wrong, so it's important to rehearse,
Yeah.
to repetitively do it, and of course the trust that I mentioned on set.
That's so good, man. That's so good. And so did you have? How many times did you have to do it? Was it?
We did, I want to say 4.
Okay.
I can't remember if we did 4. It wasn't because we made a mistake.
Yeah, yeah.
I think there were 4 good takes, but it's because they have to film different angles.
Angles of it.
I think there was the one, obviously the lighting
Yeah,
cue one,
yeah.
but I think we had 4 that were great, so that they could use from any direction.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to calm yourself 4 different times.
Yeah, I think there was actually maybe more, but I remember 4.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. All right. So favorite movie, Blade.
Yeah.
Scariest moment, Lethal Weapon 4.
Yeah.
All right. Most embarrassing moment. Okay. Most embarrassing.
Okay, I got a great one.
Okay.
It's embarrassing, but it is funny.
Yeah.
So, in the film business, especially in that timeline, the term is called hustle. And what that means is that stunt people, they meet at a certain place to kind of talk about what's going on.
Okay.
It's not like an actor, where an actor's like, hey, my agent's sending me on an audition.
Yeah.
And you're like going, okay, you say your lines, and okay, cut.
Yeah,
and then maybe you get it, maybe you don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way in stunts. Stunts is you gather usually to know what's going on. And then you try to get to the stunt coordinator.
Yeah.
And if he needs or she needs your skills
Yeah.
or your look, there's a high chance you could get on a picture. So
Okay.
I'm going to use a restaurant that I know. It may not be with our audience. But I remember this one was called the Ale House. And it was just you eat a chicken sandwich, and meet there. And everybody would go there. And like, hey, what movie did you see? Hey, where'd you go to set today? Well, That's the common culture of
Yeah.
hustling. Okay? Well, everybody's going around. Hey, where'd you go? Oh, I went to try to get on an Arnold Schwarzenegger movie. Oh, okay. Where is that? What part of the city? Oh, it's over here. It's tough to get on set.
Yeah.
Or someone's like, I'm trying to get on Sylvester Stallone's movie, and so on and so on and so on.
Yeah.
Well, this one day, this stuntman, I laugh even thinking about it. We were like, hey, where'd you go? And he's like, well, I drove all the way to San Diego. Why'd you drive to San Diego?
Yeah.
We got all these films in Los Angeles. He said, yeah, I know, but I was want to take the ride and go down there. It was this action movie with Keanu Reeves. And I just laid into him. It's not Keanu Reeves we know now, like John Wick.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not Keanu Reeves as in, all his film. I was thinking Bill and Ted's when he said it. So he said,
Wow.
Keanu Reeves, I was like, you drove to San Diego to be on an action film with Keanu Reeves?
Yeah.
What a waste of a day. And he's like, yeah, I know. And somebody in the distance, hey, what was the name of that? I might go out there. He's like, it was like Meter, Matrix. It was Matrix.
What?
And long story short, I didn't go. Everybody else went.
And the Matrix was the Matrix.
And the Matrix, not just one, it was the trilogy. Obviously, we know all to this day. I never got on that team.
What?
And then that team also a lot of them went to make the John Wick films.
Oh, wait. So let me get this straight. I'm sorry. I'm laughing with you, right?
But back to your question,
Yeah, no, but
most
this is-
embarrassing.
So you laughed at this film that became the brand of The Matrix,
Yeah.
which led to the brand of John Wick. Didn't even make the drive to San Diego.
And it's always been, it's embarrassing, but it's always been a great reminder for me. It's like never underestimate someone's ability. Never underestimate someone's project. Be an encourager, be a learner. Hey, whether it's a success, whether it's something simple, be there, be engaged, and be part of that community.
Wow. So basically, you just turned down possibility of making multiple millions of dollars. I'm just kidding. I mean, I'm serious, but kidding. But no, that was such a great lesson there, and I love it. But man, wow. But at the end of the day, what God had for you was definitely for you.
Absolutely. Well, and I also I give complete props to the teams at Matrix. I mean, they really revolutionized some filmmaking.
Yeah.
Some of the martial art talent in there was incredible.
Wow.
You end up getting on different teams anyways for whatever reason. And God had other things for me that He had me part of. And but it is also always a great memory too, because it's like always give credit where credit's due.
That's so good. You didn't think to go back and be like, hey man, I was just kidding. I knew it was gonna be I knew it was gonna be a success. I mean, you didn't even try to even jump back in.
Well, I think that's where a major shift came right around that timeline, and then God had called me to youth ministry.
Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. Man, James, thank you so much for
having
hanging
me.
out with me and our Chasing Elephants podcast crew. Now, if people wanted to kind of follow you on social media or something, how can they do that?
Yeah, on Instagram
Yeah.
at James Sang Lee, YouTube, same thing at James Sang Lee. And then also we got some new stuff coming out with fight choreography with the Canon team, and even next week is the World Championship, and getting ready to do stuff with some of the team from Mandalorian.
That's a good. Oh, talk about that. So, okay, you can. Well, can you? I don't know how it works. The Mandalorian.
Really excited to team up with Ryan Watson. Most people know Ryan. He was Gal Gadot's trainer for Wonder Woman, so he was fight choreographer for Wonder Woman. But then he also won 2 Emmys for Mandalorian. So looking forward to collaborating with him, learning from him. He's he was a kung fu guy. He knows sword and stuff well. He's into lightsabers, and just a really great guy. So looking forward to teaming up with him.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Man, James, thank you
Thanks for
so
having me.
much.
Yeah.
Man, hey, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. I hope you were just wowed as much as I was having this conversation with our friend James Sang Lee. And I'm telling you, I would encourage you to definitely follow him, keep up with them, check out some of his movies that he was a part of. You heard him talking about the Lethal Weapon scene. That's awesome. And so, but hey, listen, we are going to continue having conversations with a variety of our friends all throughout the summer. And so I hope you'll continue to listen. As always, we want you to like, subscribe, share, all those great things. You can follow my brother Brent at Brent, I was going to say at SLU, but at Brent A. Crow. You can follow our organization at SLU Lead, and you can follow me at I am Jeff Wallace. Until next time, make sure you do everything that you can to use every day that you have to be intentional about being the best version of yourself. Until next week, we'll see you. God bless. Peace out.
God bless.
Good.
Nice.
Man.